So Ubisoft just released their second episode of their Assassin's Creed Mirage development series, and there was a lot that was showcased throughout this episode, such as combat, skill trees, outfits, weapons and so much more that I just felt like I had to make a video about. So in this video I'll be going over everything we learned from this second episode, as well as my thoughts breaking down everything that was shown. So without further ado, let's just dive right into it. So this episode is focused on 3 parts, just like how the first episode was. The first part titled A New Playable Hero, the second part titled Becoming the Assassin, and the third part titled Deadly and Resourceful. Now this third part to me was the most informative, but for now let's just focus on the first part, which is a new playable hero. So for this first part of this episode, the Ubisoft Bordeaux team just simply caught us up with Basim from when he appeared in Assassin's Creed Valhalla to when he appears in Assassin's Creed Mirage. It's nothing that we've not seen already. I made a more detailed video discussing Basim's importance in Assassin's Creed Mirage if you want to check that out. Stefan Boudon mentions here how they wanted Assassin's Creed Mirage to explore a setting that was reminiscent to Assassin's Creed 1, which is how they ultimately came up with deciding on Baghdad. Now for me, I can sort of see why they would think the golden age of Baghdad and the Third Crusade in 1191 would be similar. I mean, Israel and Iraq are relatively not that far apart from each other. The cities in Assassin's Creed 1 were often compact and tight, which is what Baghdad appears to be like, so that's a positive I guess. From this image here, we can see how tightly spaced each building is, so I do expect we'd be able to parkour from rooftop to rooftop quite often in Baghdad. We did see parkour in the Ubisoft Forward gameplay reveal where Basim was practically maneuvering around the city without exactly touching the floor, so it does seem that way. Anyway, I don't know if it's just me, but does this clip look like they've slightly improved the speed of parkour? I know it's not a massive improvement, but it does slightly look a little faster than what we've seen before from previous gameplay footage. That could just be me though, but when he jumps off this hanging square pallet, it does seem like he's gained a little speed boost. Now for the second chapter of this episode, and that is Becoming the Assassin. They mention some pretty good stuff in this part. I do find it pretty good that they've created Assassin's Creed Mirage with the intention that you do not need to play Assassin's Creed Valhalla to understand Basim's character. This is quite good for new players because if I'm not mistaken, there's going to be no modern day segments, perhaps one at the very beginning of the game and one at the very end, but that's to be expected. We also get to look at some new art of Baghdad, and can I just say how stunning it looks. Just the city skyline and the Tigris riverbanks looks great. The buildings in this particular image look so compact as I mentioned earlier. The vibrance is also there and it just looks overall like a pretty good setting that Ubisoft decided on. The Ubisoft Bordeaux development team briefly touched on Nihal, who if you don't know is Basim's childhood street thief friend. Now not much is known about her other than that she's close to Basim. It's obvious that she'll definitely play a very important role in the story, and if I was to make a wild prediction, I'd assume that she'd somehow get killed off. I don't know what it is, but it just seems like she's one of those characters in Assassin's Creed where the game would make us feel connected and then shit would just turn tragic. Here we get more images of Alamut Castle, which is the home base for the assassins. Interestingly enough, during this time period in the game, Alamut Castle is still under construction, so of course it's not going to be accessible. But who knows? Maybe there'd be a gameplay scene or two that can occur inside of Alamut Castle, because we already know that right outside of it is where Basim trains in the ways of becoming a hidden one. Here we can see an image of a young Basim that we've not yet seen before. He looks even younger than what we've seen from the story trailer, so I do wonder if there's going to be any flashback scenes throughout the game. That would be quite an interesting aspect to see. Here they showcase the assassin robes that Basim would be wearing throughout the game. At first he's in this street thief attire where he'd have no knowledge of the assassins, and then after he undergoes his training outside of Alamut Castle, he then gets this apprentice robes which looks pretty cool. It's a nice white robe with some blue shades throughout. But his master assassin outfit however, oh boy does that look good. I'm a big fan of this for many reasons. The first being how sleek and simplistic it is with the white and red and the more Levantine style assassin hood. And the second reason being how identical it looks to Altair's master assassin outfit. I mean, take a look at this. Even the straps on his chest, the belt and the red strips all look pretty similar. I do wonder at what point during Mirage we'd be able to receive his master assassin outfit. I do like the little touches that they added, such as it connecting both Valhalla and Mirage, with the red cloth around his arm symbolizing the rebellion and that he kept it with him all the way up until the events of Valhalla. Now, one thing that they mentioned in this episode that quite a few people might overlook is the fact that throughout the game, the events of the Zand Rebellion will be occurring simultaneously. Now, if you don't know what the Zand Rebellion is, in summary, it was a real historical event that occurred during this time period, where people who were known as the Zand would be taken by force from their homes and then made into slaves in plantations. So it'll be quite interesting to see the way Ubisoft can implement this piece of history throughout Assassin's Creed Mirage. It's gonna be fascinating to see all of this play out for Basim, while also acting out as an assassin that's going through internal conflict, hallucinating visions about jinns. Now for the third chapter of the episode, and this to me was the most interesting part as there was quite a lot that was shown in this one. So here they start off by showcasing something we have actually not seen before, which is the skill tree. Now for some strange reason they've decided to cut off a lot of the screen, though they could be potentially hiding a lot more that we've not seen. But this is what we were presented with. We got Phantom, Trickster and Predator as the three categories of skills. The first skill that they show is Breakfall, which is a skill that's in Valhalla. This skill allows you to perform a roll the moment that you land from jumping off something. Of course, this most likely is not going to be like Odyssey, where we jump off from 200 feet in the air and survive. In Assassin's Creed Mirage, it appears that we just simply reduce the fall damage taken by unlocking this skill. The next skill that we get to see is the airstrike skill, which I actually like quite a lot. I believe we've seen something similar to this in past games, where we jump off something while aiming in, and then time around us will slow down. But in this case, in Assassin's Creed Mirage, it's with throwing knives. I can already see the people making montage moments out of this. The next skill that we see is the kickback, which is a new skill in Assassin's Creed. It allows you to kick back an enemy after parrying their attacks. This seems like it would be good to escape combat if you're about to die or just create some space from enemies. That's all they really highlighted for the skills, so from here I'm going to give my guesses on the other skills in this skill tree and base them on what we've seen from Valhalla, because I assume they'd be identical. So for this skill, it appears that it's the chain assassination skill. So if you've seen from the Ubisoft Forward gameplay reveal, you know that this particular skill is one that's causing a lot of controversy because of how ridiculous it looks. The next skill which I've worked out is the counter roll skill, which allows you to dodge towards an enemy and mount over them right when they attack you. And the last one on the Phantom skill tree is quite hard to determine because we've not actually seen this exact icon before in other Assassin's Creed games. So if I was to assume, I'd guess it would be blow dart related. Perhaps it allows us to fire multiple darts at once towards an enemy. Now for the Trickster section of the skill tree, and it appears that there's 5 skills here that can be unlocked, with 2 of them being already activated. This first one is identical to the auto loot skill from Valhalla, where we'd be able to loot the enemies automatically. The second skill looks like it's to do with potions, perhaps it's a skill for increased capacity. This third skill appears to be related to throwing knives. Perhaps it's a skill that upon killing an enemy, it will grant you the throwing knife back. That's just a wild guess. This next skill though is quite a tricky one to determine. It's related to currency, so it's kind of hard to guess. But if I was to take one wild guess, it could be a skill that allows you to sell at merchants for an extra percentage, just like how they did it in Origins. The last skill in the Trickster section is the hardest one to determine. It appears in the symbol of the Assassin Bureau, so perhaps it's got something to do with those scattered around Baghdad. Now I can't see the skills for the Predator section of the skill tree because they didn't really show it for some reason. Only 3 can be seen, and it appears that these 2 are related to Enkidu, which is our eagle, and this one is related to stealth. Now the great thing about earning skill points in Mirage is that it's purely story driven, so that's how you'd be able to gain more skill points. The next part that they mention is stuff we've already seen from the gameplay shown at Ubisoft Forward, such as the contracts, tools and also a trap tool in use. This episode also very briefly touches on the actual menu, so I had to freeze frame it here and talk about what I found. So of course we got the usual stuff at the top, such as tools, inventory, world, investigation, which I believe is the contract board stuff, skills and the codex if you want to discover the lore about the game. Now one thing I've noticed in this menu screen is that there's no store option, which was an option in every RPG Assassin's Creed game. So could that potentially mean that there's no microtransactions? Who knows? Maybe they just got rid of it here for the episode purpose. We can see here that there's the outfit and costume. I'd assume the costumes would be appearance based robes that we could wear that could alter our appearance entirely. Perhaps this could be similar to how Assassin's Creed Syndicate did it, where they included little passives and buffs when wearing certain outfits. And for the outfits, this could be the outfits that we unlock from progressing the story of Assassin's Creed Mirage. So here we'd be able to switch between the apprentice robes or the master assassin robes, and of course much more. The colour of these robes that Basim can wear can be changed using dyes, which is a feature that we've seen implemented previously in Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood. It appears here that these can be unlocked through progression, especially here where it says Zanj Uprising outfit. Remember earlier how I mentioned that the Zanj Rebellion would occur? Well, here it appears that completing certain storyline moments related to this can actually unlock dyes too. Over here is the talisman section, which would be where we'd be able to equip certain talismans to place on Basim. I do hope these talismans do come with certain passive effects or buffs for our character. And if you've pre-ordered the deluxe edition, you'd actually receive this hourglass of time, which is what hangs off the back of Basim, so this is where it'll be slotted. The next part of the menu screen we can see is the sword and dagger slots. Here we can see some sword designs that they come up with, and I must say, these do look quite impressive. I'd say my personal favourite would definitely be either this middle one here or this first one. It kind of reminds me of a scimitar style sword. They also showcase the hidden one sword on its own, which maybe could mean that this would be a rare sword or perhaps the best sword in the game. Finally, we also get to see actual raw combat being showcased instead of, pre-planned fight scenes. Now of course this combat at first glance is very reminiscent of Valhalla, but there's definitely an improvement to it. First off, the new animations when finishing enemies off, as well as Basim being able to use his dagger at the same time with his actual sword, which is quite interesting to see. He's definitely a lot more agile than Eivor was, which is to be expected because one is a Viking and one is trained to perfection as an assassin. These health bars above the enemies are certainly something that a few people won't like. There's also the stun bar under the health bar. Maybe we'd be able to turn off the health bars in the settings. So yeah, that's pretty much where the episode ends. I must say it did look pretty promising, and you can clearly see that these Ubisoft Bordeaux developers are actual Assassin's Creed fans with pure love for the older games. So it's nice to see them implementing their thoughts and ideas into Assassin's Creed Mirage. Of course there's a fair amount of things that many people won't agree with, such as the teleport assassination ability and that it looks like a Valhalla reskin at some points. But everyone is entitled to their own opinions. Now I can't wait to see the final episode of this behind the scenes development series that they've got going on, because that one is titled Recreating a Lost City, and it appears that it'll focus more on the world and Baghdad as a city. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with everything Assassin's Creed related, and I'll see you in the next one.